So how was Joe Biden greeted when he finally made his way over to Maui? Because it only took him 2 weeks, but I guarantee if Zelensky called him up on the phone and said, Joe, I need a few more $1 billion, that money would have been wired over like that to allegedly protect Joe's money laundering interests and hunters. So it took him 2 weeks. He finally gets there, and how's he greeted? With a lot of middle finger salutes and F's and U's. Justly so. Hawaii, I'm not blaming you, but next time you get into a voting booth, make sure you know the person you're voting for has your best interest at heart. Just because somebody has a D in front of their name does not mean they're going to help you. Just look at every big blue city across the United States. They're deteriorating, but I digress. Joe gets to the island. Then he starts joking to the firemen about how hot the ground is. Yeah, because a historic city on the island, Lahaina, burned to the ground, you idiot. Then he speaks, but you can't ask him any questions. So he talks about how at one point he had a little fire in his home and that he almost lost his prized 1967 Corvette and his cat. So he's comparing a little fire that he had in his home to a historic area on Maui that has been there for generations. People have been there for generations. They lost their families' homes. They lost their businesses. They lost their lives. They lost family and friends. And he's comparing a little house fire to that? Disgraceful. Over 100 people lost their lives. The sirens did not go off deliberately. The water didn't go off deliberately. Streets were closed off deliberately. People had to jump in shark-infested waters and swimming pools to stay alive. There are still over 1,000 people missing, and a lot of them are children. That the mayor of Maui was questioned by a reporter, how many children are still missing, and the mayor could not answer the question when he knows how many children perished. Or maybe something a little bit more nefarious happened. Does the movie Sound of Freedom ring any bells? I'm not saying anything. But to boot, at the end of his visit, they had a little ceremony there on Maui for the survivors, the deceased, and the missing. And as the camera pans the room, it stops at Joe. And Trump was right when he gave him this name, Sleepy Joe, because Joe was caught asleep. Absolutely disgraceful. So it took him 2 weeks. He gets there and jokes, and then he falls asleep. But when Ukraine needs money, 115 billion so far, it's cents. But when Americans are struggling and they lose their property, their family members, and their livelihoods, he jokes around. I really hope that individuals that voted for him feel sorry for their decision, because they should, because it was a big mistake. So I just wanted to talk about how he was greeted with middle finger salutes and a lot of F's and a lot of U's. Justly so deserved. Ciao, ciao.